Hi friends, we're live. It's CFLW, the show for this Monday, October the 20th. Rusty with you here. Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. Coming up, we'll talk about what happened yesterday with the weather, first of all. Then we'll get into what's happening right now with a cool front that has moved south of us. Another one that'll be coming in midweek to reinforce some of this cooler air. We'll look at those temperatures. We'll talk about if there's any chance for additional rain. And of course, I've got your latest on the tropics with the developing system in the Eastern Caribbean. Down the road, is that something that we're going to have to be watching out for here in Florida? As always, CFLW is sponsored by the Lean Law Firm of Central Florida, your hometown homeowners insurance attorneys, offering free consultation and policy reviews. They'll walk you through the insurance claim process. So you get wind, hail, hurricane, property damage of any kind, of burst pipe, they can get you covered. Go to leanonmelaw.com if you guys would like more information. Hope you guys had a great weekend. How you doing today? Hey, Chessie, how are you? Good afternoon. From Spring Hill, sunshine with some puffy clouds and a very lovely 80 degrees. Hey, Neek, how are you as well? Thanks for tuning in for today. Yes, it is going to be a very nice rest of our Monday. And these are current temperatures on the board for you right now. You can clearly see that there is a difference in where we are sitting right now temperature-wise because we have a weak front that is beginning to slip through the area as we speak. And legitimately, when I zoom in the southern sides of Hernando County, south of Spring Hill, you've got 81. It is 70 right now in Inverness. It is 72 in Crystal River. It is 73 in Leesburg. For late October, this is a legitimate cold front for Central Florida. 81 in Sanford right now, but behind it, we've dropped down to 77 in DeLand, 75 in Daytona Beach, Ocala down to 73 degrees. We've got 79 in Gainesville. So, there is some cooler air, and it is a little bit dependent on how much cloud coverage that you're seeing at the hour as well. I'm going to throw on the visible satellite imagery. You do notice that along this boundary, there is thicker cloud coverage. That's why it is cooler right now in Citrus, in Sumter, and Lake, and Marion, portions of inland Volusia, and Seminole counties. You go north of there, it's actually warmer again, as again, Gainesville's 6 degrees warmer than what it is in Ocala. And then we actually have some of this rain that is moving off towards the south and to the east. Now, yes, to answer your question, Chessie, or to talk about yesterday, good storm yesterday. Look, I am the first to admit when I bust a forecast, and I absolutely busted the forecast for yesterday. Came on Friday, talked about how I thought it was going to be a completely dry weekend, just didn't expect there to be enough moisture in the atmosphere and enough lift that as this front came through, it was going to produce some rain. Now, the interesting thing about it is I've been doing this long enough where I've busted plenty of forecasts before, but sometimes you make a forecast for a few days out and you realize not long down the road, you're like, okay, things are already changing and likely that's not going to pan out. For this particular instance yesterday, it wasn't until the front and the rain was on the doorstep that, I realized that like, okay, this is actually going to move through and it's actually going to bring some decent rain and it's even going to bring a few storms. So my apologies. I never like to bust a forecast. It happens from time to time, but it brought, again, another nice little push of showers across the area, again, late. And, this time of the year, I work 7 days a week, and I told my kids, I was like, when I get done, might be able to do something with you guys outside. When I got done with all the work yesterday and 5:30 rolled around, I finally got done with all the work over on the Media Mundo channel for the Caribbean, and I looked out, I was like, oh, it is coming. Like, it's overcast, and here comes the rain and storm. So, anyway, that's what we've got, and that's what's been left over here along this boundary. Now, for today, appreciably not likely to see much more rain or any at all. There's another cool front that's going to be coming in later in the week, and that will provide the opportunity to reinforce some of the cooler air. Now, again, going off of what I'm seeing, I'm still keeping things dry for the rest of the week, but we'll take a look at some of that forecast for you guys coming up. Let's get into our cameras because we have these live cameras. As Chessie mentioned and as others might see, we do have some cloud coverage in portions of Central Florida on this Monday afternoon. It's not area wide right now, but near that boundary, we are starting to see some clouds, mainly just flat cumulus clouds kind of working their way through. But, from time to time, it's overcast right now, and that's why temperatures are in the lower 70s. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you're going to see live conditions scrolling across the bottom here on our ticker, and the numbers are going to be all over the place, from 70 degrees to even some mid and upper 80s in a couple of spots. Right now Tampa is currently sitting at 86, Sarasota is in at 83, so it's extremely area dependent here as we hit 1 o'clock on this Monday. Winter Park camera, again, a little bit of cloud coverage, but a little bit more blue skies. We look off to the east from the lean law cam at this point in time. Nice fresh winds, obviously behind the front. The winds are going to be a little bit more out of the north again to reinforce some of that drier air that'll be working its way in. This is the Conway cam, southeast side of downtown Orlando. Again, a little bit of a nice breeze outside. Partly cloudy skies at this point in time, but we'll actually see this camera get a little bit cloudier over the next couple of hours, and then skies are likely to clear back out. And the farther south that you go, you're going to expect to see a little bit more sunshine at the hour as well, but we're still in some of the cloud coverage from the attractions camera. Again, this camera is at Lake Buena Vista. Again, notice that everything is pretty, stratiform deck. There's not a lot of vertical development to it. There's not a lot of lift in the atmosphere. So despite the fact that we have some of this moisture coming in with this next little boundary, again, not really expecting any appreciable rainfall in the area. If that's going to happen, that's going to be a little bit closer to southeast Florida for today, down towards Fort Lauderdale, Miami. They have a little bit better opportunity to see some of those showers. Hey Kish, how you doing? I was in Lakeland late afternoon, got dark and very windy here, but it didn't rain. I had some decent showers where I live. There was a little bit more rain farther north from you, Kish. Even a couple of rumbles of thunder. There were special marine advisories. It wasn't anything strong, but again, there were a few rumbles of thunder, a little bit of lightning to go along with some rain. And again, surprising to me, first to admit it, did not expect this front to have that much oomph in the atmosphere, if you will, to provide the opportunity to produce the showers that we saw yesterday. Hey Blue Goose, how you doing? Good afternoon to you. 75 degrees with 67% humidity. Looking good. Great to see you. Appreciate you tuning in again. These are our winds at the hour. And again, they'll freshen up from time to time to right around 20. That's a pretty common number. Now, if we take a look at things, we get down towards the Sebastian area, they already have a north wind, right? So this boundary is very diffuse right now, where even though the weather system is kind of painting it here, it's such a broad system that for the most part at the surface right now, our winds across the area have already turned out of the north. But along that boundary, there's some cloud coverage. So that's the kind of the biggest difference, if you will. There's not going to be a wind shift because we already have the north winds, but there'll be some cloud coverage along this boundary to cool things down for a time here. Now, the interesting thing about it is if you live in these areas where temperatures are cooler at the hour, right? First of all, again, 70 at Inverness and 81 in the Spring Hill area, right? 81 at MCO. That's a 10 plus degree difference. Look south, guys. Tampa 86, Sarasota 88. So there is amazingly big difference, and it's generally because of the cloud coverage at the hour. But these areas, once the clouds push away from you, are likely to warm back up a bit late this afternoon, right? Let me take off the radar so I can loop this up for you guys. If I take off the radar, we can do a longer duration loop. So you can just see the cloud coverage here in the last couple of hours moving into these areas. And that again has, kept these temperatures very steady in Marion and, Sumter and Lake and Citrus counties, just north and west areas here where, again, a little bit more sunshine farther to the south and you're warming up very nicely. Now look, down the road, okay, we're going to have another frontal boundary trying to work its way in. At this point in time, and we'll look at the forecast for you guys, I'm not expecting this one, again, to have any appreciable rain with it. If you notice that the winds are at the south, but there's very little moisture. I know these numbers are hard to see because they're dark, but these are your dew points. And the dew points right now, even with a southerly wind in the southeast, are mainly in the 30s and 40s. So this next front coming through should not have a lot of moisture to play with here, but it should help to drop our temperatures a bit. It got pretty warm yesterday afternoon before the showers moved in, right? It's a little bit more comfortable for today. It'll warm back up over the next couple of days, and then that reinforcing shot of air, cooler air likely to come in Wednesday and Thursday should help to drop temperatures once again as well. Now, one thing that continues to be pretty consistent in the area is coastal issues from time to time, right? We continue to have the driving onshore winds. We continue to have the opportunity to see a little bit in the way of some coastal flooding. At this point in time, most of that has gone by the wayside, and right now you're generally just left with rip current statements along the East Coast, small craft exercise caution, small craft advisories in the offshore waters more than 20 nautical miles away. But you get the idea that we still have some fresh winds outside, and as the next front comes in, it is likely to kick up the winds enough again to provide the opportunity for more coastal issues. So it's not going to surprise me if we have some beach hazards later in the week. We have some elevated tide conditions again, hopefully not as excessive as what they were last week, but that opportunity will still be there. The flood warnings that you see for Lake and Volusia again continue for the St. Johns River. That's how long it takes for the flood waters to recede. It can be so long, well past we've had any kind of rain appreciably whatsoever in this area. Taking a look real quickly as well at the drought situation in the area. So let me drop off these advisories real quick, which again is always fun. I always get to try and find what tab these are on. Here we go. All right, so dropping that off, you guys can clearly see again that our western areas are still considered to be abnormally dry, right? No area is actually under a drought at this point in time in Central Florida, but now that the drier air is here, we have to rely on these cold fronts to come in to produce the chance for some showers. And because these fronts can sometimes be very weak this time of the year in fall, the opportunity, right, to get some appreciable rain in October and November can really begin to slide away. So we'll rely on the fronts at this point in time or tropical systems. And we're going to be getting to that in just a minute as well. There's a flood warning showing for West Daytona near Astor. So that is going to be the St. Johns River. That's what it is. I mean, I can show you that right here. So this is going to be, again, the flood warning continues for the St. Johns River near Astor, right? And it's, again, the St. Johns is such a flat river basin, over 500,000 acres, and there's such a low grade, about 1 inch per mile as far as the drop off in the St. Johns. And remember, it flows north, right? All different unique things. Basically, all of Central Florida way back in the day used to just be a floodplain, but then there was a little bit of tectonic activity that occurred in the central part of the state back down to Brevard County and produced this very shallow river basin, which we now know as the St. Johns. But again, it's a very unique situation because it wasn't here initially, right? Tectonic activity developed it, and now you have a river that very gently flows to the north, and unfortunately 500,000 plus acres try and flow into it, and we have some, populated areas along the St. Johns that flood easily and then takes so long for the water to recede. To give you an idea, a few years ago, right, up in the Astor area, they got flooded significantly by Ian, Hurricane Ian, if you guys remember that. Literally the week before Nicole came in, they had just dropped below flood levels. And then Nicole hit, and for months afterwards, they were right back above flood stage. So that's the situation there. Fiona, it is not too late for tropical activity, my friend. Hurricane season goes through November. We can absolutely see something try and sneak up. Now, the deeper into October that we go, it does begin to fall, especially here in Florida and the southeast United States, because we do start to get cold fronts that can push the storms back south and east. And that could be exactly what's going to be happening with the next storm we're about ready to talk about. But absolutely in October, we can get not only, tropical depressions and tropical storms, but we can get hurricanes still to move to the state. And that could even happen in November from time to time. We start to lose that. But I can tell you this right now, sea surface temperatures, especially in the Caribbean, absolutely can support any kind of storm it wants to develop. It's a little bit cooler as you get into the Gulf right now, but we're still above that 80-degree Fahrenheit in most locations. Yes, environmental conditions will still support tropical development. Hey, Kevin, good afternoon to you as well. Technically, it ends in November. Absolutely, yeah. It does end November 30th. Starts June 1st, ends November 30th. There was discussion that the Hurricane Center might actually start at May 15th, because if you guys remember, like 6 years in a row, we had tropical development in May outside of the actual season. But they haven't done that so far. They've started to issue their daily tropical updates beginning on May 15th, but technically they haven't brought back the season to begin on May 15th, at least as of yet. If you guys remember, it would be 2006 into 2007. And the only reason that I can remember that off the top of my head, it was the lone year that I worked at a TV station in Missouri, right? I was out there in Missouri. And that was the year that we went into the Greek alphabet, deeply into the Greek alphabet, where even in January, they were still issuing named storms for subtropical systems. So it is just a date on the calendar. Mother Nature can do wild things, but appreciably for us here in Florida, absolutely we have a chance to still see a storm develop. And sometimes in late October and November, some of this activity can try and develop pretty close to home, right? We can get some systems in the Northwest Caribbean. We can get some systems in the Southern Gulf or just off of our East Coast as well. Hey, Garrett, how you doing? Good afternoon to you. Hi, Farah, how are you? I hope you're doing well. Yeah, that was an interesting one, no doubt about it. Hey, Kyle. Yeah, Kyle's right. The lakes, you know, in some ways, the whole, obviously, aquifer system, it's all interconnected, right? But the St. Johns River Basin is just a very interesting one. And, you know, again, you know, we put homes and property on places that are susceptible to flooding. It's the same situation along our coastline as well. Look, I grew up in Crystal River. The no-name storm of 1993 flooded out our house. We were out for 6 months. I know it firsthand what it's like to see salt water come through your front door. But it is the situation. And that's the other thing about hurricanes too, right? They have, you know, they are a part of the ecosystem, if you will, you know, of the world. They transport warm, moisture-laden air from the equatorial regions to the mid-latitudes. If that didn't happen, the equatorial regions would just continue to get hotter and hotter and hotter, and mid-latitudes and the poles would get colder, colder, and colder, and then you wouldn't have any life on Earth. So it's transporting warm, moist air north, but we just like to, you know, enjoy the beautiful areas that it goes through when we build property there, and, you know, we have to deal with that from time to time. All right, so let's get into what's going to be happening in our area, and then I do want to talk about the tropics real quick. So I'm going to start off with, again, locally what's going on, switch over here, and I'm just going to go out to the GFS, again, not expecting there to be a ton of activity the next couple of days, but we'll discuss, you know, how things are likely to play out. So today's the 20th. I'll just go out to Friday. And obviously, by the way, guys, if you want to keep up with the tropics on a daily basis, I've got the Media Mundo channel. You'll find the link to that here on the CFLW channel. Of course, a forecast for the Caribbean and the Bahamas areas. So check that out if you guys want to keep up. But we're going to get into it at this point in time as well. So here's the GFS. It's moving very, very slowly at this point in time. Again, not really sure why it's moving so slowly, to be honest. When I've got everything loaded up correctly, potentially maybe picking up the new model run. Is that the 6Z? It's the 6Z. Maybe it's picking up the new model run. Okay, anyway, you get the idea that this boundary could still produce a little bit of rain over the next 6 to 12 hours right here. So this is today, right, into tomorrow. But generally speaking, I think it's going to be offshore where you have a little bit more moisture, and then into the southeast Florida. Then as we get towards the next boundary coming in late week, generally speaking, still expecting it to do nothing more than push in drier air. One area that I can't completely rule out that could get a spotty shower mid to late week would be our East Coast. And the reason why is we're likely to have onshore winds kick on again, right? So as we get towards, you know, Friday, which is the 24th, and then over the weekend, maybe a little bit more. Now, you know, we won't get into the weekend forecast until Friday's show, but it's not going to shock me if I at least have some rain chances returning to Central Florida on Sunday from everything I looked at this morning. But you get the idea that it's going to be very, very spotty if we were going to get anything. I'm also going to put on real quickly here. I don't want to do, where are the vectors? So let's go to reflectivity here. There we go. So just going to put on the wind field basically for you guys as well. So let's load that up and you can see what I'm talking about here. Now, generally speaking, we'll start to see the winds twist a little bit more with a component of a southerly breeze in some areas tomorrow, and then especially on Wednesday. That would allow, in most areas, temperatures to climb just a little bit. We're also going to see a little bit more sunshine overall as well. But as we get to the next weak front coming in, and again, not expecting there, generally speaking, to be enough lift in the atmosphere and enough moisture to squeeze out the kind of rain and storms that we saw yesterday. And if you guys are just tuning in, yep, didn't do very well with that forecast, and first one to admit that. Sometimes these things bust, but you get the idea that here comes this next boundary, right, as we get into Wednesday. So you see the winds turn out of the north, and then starting on Thursday, we're going to start to have more of an onshore breeze out of the east. And it's then late Friday and into Saturday where some showers could begin to try and sneak their way back along I-95. And then likely as we get into Sunday's forecast, we're going to stay with this east wind, and there's going to be a little bit moisture along that stalled boundary. Now, this next boundary should be able to clear the area a little bit better than the one that did yesterday. But there still should be enough moisture here in the Western Atlantic Basin to pull in a couple of showers over the weekend. So again, likely to have some rain chances for the weekend ahead. On Friday's show, we'll break that down for you guys. So let's talk about how it's going to impact our temperatures here. I've got a couple of city by city forecasts, and then I want to jump into the tropics. So for the attractions, again, mostly sunny skies for the most part. Again, slight southerly component to the breeze the next couple of days. So it is going to warm up. 87 tomorrow after morning low 69. Wednesday 86. Right now I'm expecting the timing of the next push of cooler, drier air to move in late in the day on Wednesday. If you live in our northern areas, you might feel it in the afternoon. If you live in our central and southern areas, it might not be until after sunset on Wednesday, but it is going to start to drive in some cooler air and probably bring an abundant amount of sunshine for Thursday and Friday, especially if you don't live along the East Coast. But slightly cooler. Should be an absolutely gorgeous Thursday. We'll get down to 65 in the attractions area for a morning low and 82 degrees for a daytime high. So we'll drop by 5 degrees from tomorrow afternoon until Thursday. In the villages, take a look at these temperatures. Beautiful forecast. Again, nothing that's going to appreciably stop you from getting outside, the round of golf, pickleball, tennis, whatever you want to do. Just a warmer afternoon for tomorrow. 87 the daytime high there as well. After morning low 65, 85 under mostly sunny skies on Wednesday. 64 is your morning low. And there comes that cooler air again. We should, in our northwest areas on Thursday morning, get into the 50s. It's going to be light jacket or windbreaker weather for a lot of you if you're getting out early in the day. But, you know, this time of the year, the sun is out. Still pretty warm, still a pretty good sun angle for late October, and temperatures should climb pretty nicely. So more than a 20-degree temperature spread in the afternoon hours. We're back up to 82 degrees for a daytime high. Clearwater Beach area, West Coast, an area again that could use a little bit of rain. Not, again, expecting that to be in the forecast. Generally, mostly sunny skies from time to time, partly cloudy. A little bit more cloud coverage along the immediate West Coast, but again, not expecting any real showers out of this. Temperatures won't fall off as much here, right? So 84 on Tuesday, 82 Wednesday, 83 on Thursday. Morning lows will drop off a little bit because the air will be a little bit drier. That allows you to see those temperatures come down a couple degrees on the morning hours. So for Thursday, 66 degrees. But even along the beaches, you know, that's not a bad forecast here to stay in the lower 80s under mostly sunny skies. Oh, Garrett, man, I'm so jealous. Saw some photos from the mountains, from the Banner Elk area, with the leaf changing, right? All the leaf peepers out there. And when I say leaf peepers, I mean they literally stopped traffic. I mean, my wife showed me a photo where it must have been rounding a corner into some kind of an outlook, and I don't even think that there was a pull away, but everyone was just off the side of the road and walking along the road, along the shoulder, to get to kind of this bend where you had a fantastic view, and it's just car after car after car after car. So it's a beautiful time of the year there. I obviously don't really get an opportunity to go up this time of the year, but I would love to. I would absolutely love to. Blue Goose, generally speaking, we've lost the mechanics of the wet season here. So we typically start to fall back into that in late October. Still could see some tropical moisture return. These cold fronts also have the, they typically stall out around our area. They don't cleanly push through. So these boundaries can provide a little bit of additional lift in the atmosphere to give us a few more showers than what we would otherwise see. But yeah, we're losing the daily mechanics to see the thunderstorms each afternoon. A little bit true, Gary, no doubt about it, especially in some areas out west for sure. Okay, let's get into the tropics. So let me give you guys the update on what's happening with Invest 98L. All right, so here's Invest 98L, and let me just clear off all of that garbage. It moved through the Windward Islands yesterday. Pretty impressive, has not developed as of yet, but as you notice, there's a red area there from the Hurricane Center, and that means we are likely to get development here. Now, I love this system sometimes that when I'm trying to, all I want to do is get rid of these arrows. But the problem is if I then say, hey, go into a lower loop time, it brings the arrows back on. And the reason why I wanted to reduce the loop time, I'm talking to myself, by the way, I clearly understand this, is that we have a drop off in the satellite. Let's see if this is any better. See if at least it will allow me to, it's a weird little thing, like these layers should be independent of each other. They shouldn't continue because I've got a whole different preset. So yes, I'm a little mad. And the problem too is that I'm trying to actually get rid of these layers and they're not even dropping off. Whatever, we're just gonna have to deal with the winds. Anyway, so you can see the direction of the winds there. I'm gonna put on wind gusts. So this is the Eastern Caribbean. We still have some 40-mile-an-hour wind gusts here in the Lesser Antilles. Here's Puerto Rico, here's the Virgin Islands, here's the AB Sound. So again, at this point in time, this is not a depression or a tropical storm. That being said, there is a high likelihood of development as we get over the next 24 to 48 hours. It's not going to surprise me based on what I've seen for today that we get that activity. I'm gonna now do this. First of all, the first thing I'm gonna do is I might punch the computer. Now that's not gonna do any good, but it might make me feel a little bit better. Let's drop off the lightning as well. Again, the reason why is you can see that there's a drop off in the satellite early in the morning, but if I try and reduce the loop time, that's when all the other data comes back on. So we'll deal with the little drop off of frames. But that's where the Invest area is right now. We're getting better showers and storms. The red is the potential development area from the Hurricane Center. And you notice that it does go west, due west in the Caribbean, not really gaining a lot of latitude. Now, this is where the Hurricane Center thinks it could develop, but let me be clear about this. There is no consensus that after we get an area of low-level pressure, a low-level center, and we get a depression or a named storm, Melissa is the next name, where it's gonna go from here. So the fact that you see this thing pushing off towards the west is a little bit misleading because that's just the area where the Hurricane Center thinks it could develop. Once it does develop, the name really does apply for this, the spaghetti plots, right? They are absolutely all over the place still. Most of them have what is going to be Melissa slowly moving into the central Caribbean over the next 48 hours, south of Hispaniola, southeast of Jamaica, kind of stalling out, maybe even doing just kind of a broad turn here. Some of the tropical models have it going north through Haiti and the Dominican Republic. Others have it pushing off towards the west, towards Jamaica and the Northwest Caribbean in general. Others drive it farther west towards Central America and the Yucatan. And you got one rogue one here that wants to slip it up towards the eastern side of the Gulf. Now, we'll talk about the potential for our area coming up, but there is very little model consensus still as to what's going to be happening with this system for the week ahead. Obviously in Florida, we've got plenty of time to watch to see if it's going to try and do anything to bring any kind of impacts our way. I think regardless if it gets into the Western Atlantic Basin, if this is the ultimate track across Haiti and the Dominican Republic towards Turks and Caicos, we're obviously going to get a push of some swells coming back towards the East Coast towards the end of the week and early next week. But if it tries to drive farther north and west, Is there at least the opportunity that some of the moisture gets back into our area or more direct impacts? It's certainly low, but I guess it's not zero at this point in time as well. So let me show you what the models are running right now. The thing about this is that the models themselves have been relatively consistent, meaning that what the GFS that you're about ready to see is showing, it's been showing pretty much the last 5 days. And the European model has been showing when it's been showing pretty much the last 5 days, but between the models, there's no agreement whatsoever at this point in time still. Now, on the GFS, and again, I've been watching this daily for the last week, this development south of the Dominican Republic and Haiti, Hispaniola, and then moving north across that island has been its solution on the deterministic main model now since late last week, right? It is a hurricane on the GFS model. It's a very powerful storm. Sea surface temperatures are running around 30 degrees Celsius, so upper 80s across all of the Caribbean, and it's deep heat content in the Caribbean as well. Nothing is going to stop it there. That's not going to be an environmental hindrance to the storm. There's very little wind shear as well. So the problem is that very close to the islands, you're going to go from a pretty sloppy, wet, squally rainmaker, which we've had the last couple of days in the Eastern Caribbean, to potentially a very powerful hurricane even as early as late Wednesday. So within about a 48-hour time frame or just beyond. This is 2 a.m. on Thursday morning, and that is a very powerful hurricane there. Now, Hispaniola is a very mountainous island. It's known as a storm ripper-upper, if you will. There are mountainous areas that go above 11,000 feet. So it really can blow apart a low level of a storm. And you notice that, as what is to be Melissa goes over the island, it really gets ripped apart and becomes a very broad rainmaker. If you guys have any interest in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, make sure that they have a heads up. Now, again, this is not the guaranteed scenario out of this storm. There's a lot of other things that could play out for this. But if we look at the GFS in general for Central Florida, there's no direct impacts whatsoever, right? And there is the opportunity for some very strong westerlies, wind shear across all of the Gulf to continue to push the storm off to the east. That's what the GFS model is picking up on, that we ultimately get southwest winds to try and drive the storm back north and east. Let me show you guys what it looks like on the wind profile with this, just so you guys get an idea. Unbelievable. Yeah, I don't want the vector, you're right. But I do want the winds. Hopefully the next version of this software, which allegedly is going to be a really nice update, won't have these issues. Do you know when they think it's going to form? Nick, my opinion is based off of what I've been seeing. Tomorrow is possible, certainly likely by Wednesday. It would shock me by this time Wednesday that we don't have a named storm. It might take a little bit of time. There is actually a little bit of shear that the storm is still fighting right now, but even as it's fighting that shear as we speak, it looks better, more impressive from what I saw this morning compared to late last night. So it's not a fast progression of the development over the next 24 to 48 hours. That is likely to begin on Wednesday. And you guys can see how quickly this blows up. So if we look at the GFS model, this is early Wednesday morning. And again, possible that tomorrow afternoon we get the named storm. You see these whites, guys? These are 40-mile-an-hour sustained winds. So on the GFS model, we are likely to have a named storm tomorrow, right? Sustained winds over 40, you've got yourself a tropical storm, all right? Then look how quickly this blows up. And look at the winds associated with it. So this is Thursday morning. You're already at a hurricane, right? Sustained winds of over 74. So you got a hurricane, you're in Cat 1 strength here. And potentially, as it gets closer to the coastline, maybe even a little bit stronger. You could be pushing Cat 2 on the GFS. I see some winds near 90 down south. Again, these are all sustained. As I've mentioned, the problem is that there's nothing environmentally that's going to stop the storm from trying to get very strong. okay? Now, obviously, if it takes a more direct due north turn, it's going to be running into the islands quicker. So it's not going to have as much time to develop and get stronger as it would if it went west. If this thing slowly creeps west, south of Jamaica or near Jamaica, those are the ones that really make it a powerful hurricane. Okay, not everyone, but they do. Obviously, a turn to the north, you interact with land a little bit quicker, and especially a very mountainous island and a large island, relatively speaking, to the Caribbean, and that is likely to rip apart the storm. But note that it's still on the GFS a hurricane before it does so, and that happens in a very short amount of time. Let's look at the ensembles. So again, the main model runs are called the deterministics, right? But each model has ensemble products. And what that is that some of the initial environmental conditions on the models are estimated, right? And so they know that they may not be exactly correct with some of those estimates. So they run these ensemble members with slightly different initial conditions. And it's kind of like you put it in and you see how that difference creates a spread over time. And that's why you see deeper into time as we go with the ensemble members, you start to get much varied different solutions. This is the GFS ensembles, okay? Picking it up kind of mid-loop here. I'll let it go through one time and then we'll start over. Or maybe I didn't and I just wasn't paying attention. Time is on the top of your screen, by the way. All right, so beginning today, again, development potentially tomorrow, certainly by Wednesday on the GFS. The majority of the ensemble members pull it over Hispaniola and into the Western Atlantic Basin. A few, which are slower to develop, have it a little bit farther west. But this is the more scenario number one, due north turn on the GFS model, where even your far western ensemble members still don't really have direct impacts to our areas. Again, the slower ones are a little bit farther west, so the initial quicker ones, Hispaniola, Western Atlantic Basin, get pulled back to the east towards Bermuda, never really get close to our area. The slower ones drift a little bit farther west before beginning that north turn, and those are the ones that you see in the Bahamas. Again, this is this weekend already, right? And you see some of the ensemble members have it east of Bermuda, but others are really slow with the development and hold this thing in the Caribbean most of the week and then finally drifted over closer to us like Jamaica and Cuba and the Bahamas. But again, even on the farthest north and west ensemble member right now of the GFS, we don't have this thing making any kind of direct impact to us. Let it run one more time. The other problem is that you see some of these ensemble members make this a very powerful hurricane. You know, pressure values dropping into the 960s. That's not pleasant. You know, I am concerned about how quickly this could develop and how strong it could ultimately get, right? If we take a look at the European model has always been farther west. Now, it still has a few members like the GFS doing its thing over Hispaniola, Turks and Caicos, and moving north and east. But you will see that there's a larger cluster of the European models which are farther west, deeper into the Caribbean, and very slow to turn north. Guys, this is the 20th, right? So this goes out like 11 days, right? Where we start to see this storm just creeping west, getting into the southern Gulf, and then potentially trying to at least bring some impacts to Florida right around Halloween or just after. And again, what's some of the concern? That the European model, some of the ensemble members have this as a very powerful hurricane. But you can see the two camps clearly, right? Some of the European ensemble members are in line with the GFS. The majority of them are still farther off towards the west, right? And if it's a farther west track, it's a slower track, which is good for us because that means we have plenty of time to monitor if that scenario plays out. The great news is we should know which one of these two camps it's going to be going into by Thursday, right? So when I see you guys on Friday, if it's doing the north track here, right, likely not going to have any kind of impact for us and not get close. If it is tracking farther west, deeper into the Caribbean, that'll be another conversation to have on Friday, but we'll still have plenty of time to monitor it because it is likely to track very slowly if that ends up being the case. Does that make sense for everyone? I hope it does. Again, at this point in time, nothing for us to worry about, but I am concerned about development here beginning on Wednesday and how strong it could end up being ultimately where it goes. I wish we had a better idea of exactly where this is tracking, but sometimes with these storms, and again, we just have an invest right now. We don't even have a tropical depression or a tropical storm as of right now. Hopefully once we get that low level center, it'll be a little bit clearer and the models will come into better agreement. That's my hope. But at this point in time, it still is watch and wait mode as far as that goes. We'll have to see, Fiona. Hi, Rhea, how are you? Hope you're doing well. In the house, good to see you. Appreciate you tuning in. All right. And again, hi, Barbara, how are you? And you're welcome, my pleasure. Again, I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for thinking enough of this channel and myself to spend part of your Monday afternoon with me. Obviously, if you guys want to do me a quick favor and hit the like button for me on this live stream, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel, thank you for subscribing. Both of those things actually support us more than you guys can imagine. Again, if YouTube thinks that, okay, you guys like the channel enough to spend some time with me and hit that like button, it's called interaction. It's going to recommend this channel to others who don't even know we exist. So I appreciate you guys doing that for me as well. One more quick look at what's happening here locally. If you guys are just tuning in, maybe you missed out on the early part of the broadcast here. Again, we have this weak frontal boundary that is slipping its way across the area right now. Show you guys that on this boundary here. That's that blue line that you see. Let's bring on the satellite. Now again, we have this cloud coverage that's moving into our northern areas, and it really is dropping the temperature right now. It's just not allowing things to warm up. So you have this huge spread in temperatures from like the Ocala, Crystal River, Homosassa, Inverness area, Leesburg in the lower 70s, even Daytona Beach at the hour is in at 75, to where we have more sunshine, kind of broken clouds over Metro Orlando in the lower 80s, and then more abundant sunshine in our southwest areas. Sarasota 88, Tampa coming in at 86. Along the coast, looking pretty good in the lower 80s. Again, no, we had some surprise storms yesterday. Don't expect that to be the case for today. Could there be a sprinkle or two with its cloud coverage? Yes, but the majority of the heaviest showers and storms stay off towards our south and to the east, and then they dissipate as well. Another front is likely to come in on Wednesday. Should be a reinforcing push of cooler air. Should feel really beautiful Thursday and Friday. East winds will return after that. They could kick up beach conditions again, where we could have some coastal hazards late this week, and the opportunity for a few showers to develop across coastal areas over the weekend and work their way inland for the weekend as well. Obviously, we'll talk about that on Friday's show as well. Okay, my friends, you know I appreciate you guys. I think we had a fantastic Monday live stream. Again, thanks for taking a quick second, hitting that like button for me. Please remember that CFLW is sponsored by the Lean Law Firm of Central Florida, your hometown homeowners insurance attorneys, offering free consultation and policy reviews. They will walk you through the insurance claim process, so wind, hail, hurricane damage, or burst pipe. Even if you've been in an auto accident, you want to do me a favor, check them out. It's leanonmelaw.com if you guys would like more information. Have a fantastic rest of your Monday. I'll see you Friday. We'll be talking about, again, rain chances, at least in some areas for the weekend. Probably not a lot, but some. And then obviously the latest on what is likely to be Melissa by then. I'll keep you guys updated. Thank you so much, chat. You guys are fantastic. Love you all. Have a great day. I'll see you soon.